Before the tweets, before the streaming, before viral trends, there was radio.
This is the studio, everybody.
And for Black America, it was more than just sound waves. It was survival. It was soul. It was ours. From gospel to hip hop, civil rights speeches to Sunday morning dedications, Black radio has always been a lifeline, broadcasting our joy, our pain, our resistance, and our rhythm. But as the world moves faster and the frequencies change, what's happening to the legacy we built? How has radio shaped us, locally in our neighborhoods and globally across cultures, who have traveled through a journey through static and the signal? And look at the past, present, and future of Black radio in a tribute to the voices that still echo through time.
My name is Marquis Lofton. I'm currently the program director of 91.3 KPVU, the advisor for the student radio organization PVUKNO Radio. I'm also a DJ, a songwriter, a producer. I'm one half of a group called the Dangerfield Newbies, and I'm just, an audio creative media specialist. That's what I consider myself to be.
What first drew you into radio? How did you get started?
Music, man. Just loving music. I grew up in D.C., so Washington D.C. it was like a real musical kind of place. We had it was like go-go music. So there was a lot of go-go was the regional music of the D.C. metro area, and it was like a lot of music, a lot of creativity. I think music drew me into radio because that was where we used to get it at. Kathy Hughes started her first radio station in Washington, D.C., 1450 WOL. And Kathy Hughes, we know now, is the urban One media giant, that owns Urban One, TV One, all those stations. But she started in Washington, D.C. And I remember going to school, riding to school with my granddad. We would ride by WOL, the radio station. And it was glass, so you could see inside the building, and you would actually see them live on the air doing things, and we would just ride by like, wow, and we just didn't know where the future would take radio, but that's what really got me into it.
The impact of Black culture hitting the radio waves is beyond more profound than we may know. Black people have never been given the opportunity to voice their struggles, talents, or even the culture.
Black culture, it goes way back, but it's very influential in radio. Radio affecting Black culture and Black culture affecting radio, I think it's a little bit of both. I definitely believe that we always have had a way to communicate to each other, to get messages out to each other, whether it was spirituals on the plantation or whether it was, songs, so that, coded songs, and then you get into the grapevine, and you hear people talk about the grapevine, and there was this old song, I heard it through the grapevine, and that was actually a real thing in the Black community. People got things through the grapevine, they heard things through the grapevine, and so being able to talk and being able to speak and speak a certain way, speak with confidence and that kind of thing, that's always been heralded in the Black community.
WERD, owned by J.B. Blayton and his son J.B. Jr. The popular entertainer Graham Jackson was a favorite of the late President Roosevelt. Jackson played for the president both at the White House and at Warm Springs, Georgia. This artist broadcasts by remote control from his little White House home, a replica of the original. The city fathers have named the street on which he lives White House Drive.
WERD was the first Black radio station. It was started in Atlanta, Georgia in 1949, and I went to college in Atlanta at Clark Atlanta University, so I've had the opportunity to see WERD downtown, and it was a gentleman there named Reese, who I remember there, and they have this big vinyl collection, and the SCLC was led by Dr. Martin Luther King, and it was in the same building with WERD. So whenever they would make plans, when they would want to get the message out to the people about, maybe a march or some movements or some meetings, WERD would drop the microphone down to the bottom floor and Dr. King would speak right there on the radio. So WERD is like one of those historical, at this point it's almost like a museum. Like when you come to Atlanta, you gotta check out WERD. They even have events there. I think one of my friends does a vinyl event there. So WERD is still kicking.
Popular disc jockeys like Al Benson and Ralph Cooper are making radio history. Let's listen to this disc jockey's choice.
Before podcasts, playlists, and streaming apps, there was a voice behind the mic, the DJ. But not just any DJ. Black disc jockeys broke barriers, shaped culture, and gave a voice to the voiceless. In the 1940s and 50s, pioneers like Jack Cooper, the first African-American DJ, Nat D. Williams, who brought rhythm and soul to Memphis radio, used airwaves as a tool for empowerment.
We would rap on the radio. That's kind of where a lot of people got the word rap. Rapping was just talking and having a conversation. Folks rapped on the radio. The DJs were almost like the first rappers in a way. Jocko Henderson, you hear about these kind of guys. He would get on and they would have catchphrases, go, and they would do little things and those would be these things, and Jocko was real popular. Well, he was one of the first black DJs that I got familiar with that I thought was kind of cool.
Oh, they must be out of their mind. The Rocketeers are lined up side by side, ready to take them on the exciting ride from the earth to the...
Jocko, in his rhyming introduction to records, was one of the most easily identified influences on rap, and DJs anywhere in the country will tell you that the father of that tradition is Jocko Henderson.
And then you had like Frankie Crocker, and Frankie Crocker, Chief Rocker Frankie Crocker, from New York. And he was real, he broke a lot of, he was big with mixing a lot of music on the radio. You listen to his show, it wasn't one thing. And he was one of those people that showed that black folks are diverse too. They can like rock music and they can like different things too. So, I think that changes radio. That changes things, groundbreaking things. I even think the DJs that came from listening to the radio stations, they were trying to emulate that in a sense. So they were in the clubs talking on the music and doing that kind of thing. And for a minute, the DJ was the front man. Everybody was talking about the DJ. And over time, the DJ is on top of the song. Everybody say, ho, he's controlling the party. He's talking. And then you get the MC that comes and says, hey, hold up, let me say something. My DJ is the best. Like the MC was really to talk about the DJ. And so then he wants to go longer. So now he's rapping. Now he's the guy. And so, radio kind of influenced hip hop, and then it goes circular. It goes vice versa.
As radio began to become more diverse, things started changing all around the U.S. and even involving the government.
Telecommunications Act was signed in 1996. President Clinton was the president at that time.
Signed into law February 8th, 1996. An act to promote competition and reduce regulation in order to secure lower prices and higher quality service for American telecommunication consumers and encourage the rapid deployment of new telecommunication technologies.
Technology to put us more directly in contact with each other. A world in which our ability to create and receive information will be limited not by the bounds of our technologies, but only by the infinite boundaries of our imagination.
It kind of didn't quite go the way I think it was supposed to, because what it did was it allowed companies to purchase unlimited amount of radio stations. Like there was a time when you could only have this certain amount of radio stations, a certain amount of television stations and stuff like that. And the Telecommunications Act allowed people to get a bunch of stations. And that's where you get your companies like Clear Channel. Clear Channel is now called iHeart. and where you get these corporations that have multiple stations all over, and so the local radio stations suffer in a sense because they don't have the reach of those stations, but also because these stations are not relying on local programming. They're relying on a lot of syndicated programming. So when you have the Breakfast Club that's syndicated with iHeartMedia, there were a lot of local shows and local stations that were affected by all that. Like some local shows had to end up, local morning shows end up having to move because the Breakfast Club is here. The Telecommunications Act, in a sense, it kind of affected things because it lessened the locality. Like you didn't get the local stuff as much, and then even things like talent, like you didn't get as many people even wanting to do radio as much. Like I feel like there was a gap somewhere where like the interest in wanting to do radio waned a little bit, and I think it kind of had to do with some ripple effects and things of the Telecommunications Act.
As time went on, radio started to highlight artists in our community with talk shows and radio shows. It shifted from a vibe of music and hip-hop to daily news, updates, and the hottest new artists and music out. But the only issue is, did radio fall off? Is radio dead?
It was a direct connection to people. Screaming is a direct connection to people.
Yeah.
And people get to respond to you in real time. Just like here on the radio, if we say something, they can call in immediately.
But this is just voice, though. Imagine if y'all was live streaming this.
Well, I get it. We do that too, though. But that's the other part that people don't realize about radio. We meet everybody where they are. So we on the radio every day, but then we scream. It go on YouTube. It go on social media. It's on Tubi. It's on a podcast every day.
Radio is alive and well. Every time something new comes, they always say the last thing is dead. Radio is still a million, probably $1 billion industry still, to this day. I mean, there's still $1 million campaigns happening with radio. But I think what we're really talking about is the challenge that radio faces with all the different options. Radio used to be where artists were being broken, and you would get your new music or even your news. You would get your news and information right from the radio. But now you can get all your information from your social media and from the internet and from the World Wide Web. So that's where radio faces a challenge. In every challenge, there's always some type of possible resilience, and I think that radio's resilience comes in locality and being local, because no matter what, people are always going to need to know what's happening right here where I am. There's always just going to be an interest in community, in the local community, and that kind of thing. So I think radio stations may want to reconsider trying to compete in music. Now when you look at music now, we don't even find out what's hot the same way we used to. It used to be like, what's at the top of the charts? That's what's hot. Nah, that's not all the time what's hot. I think the thing that radio has to recognize is they have to say, hey, look, what can we give people that they can't get nowhere else? And that's local, this right here. KPVU can give you Prairie View A&M University. It could give you the community of PV, the city of Prairie View. It could give you Houston. And you can't get that anywhere else. We have to include the younger generation and reintroduce them to radio in a sense. Reintroduce them to how to listen to the radio. And I think that radio has a great opportunity to lean into that and give people something real. There used to be a time when people used to gather around the radio and listen to a show and just listen to it and use your imagination and things like that. And so there's just opportunities to bring those things back in maybe some new way.
As we close this journey through history and heartbeat of Black radio, one truth remains clear. We've never just been on the air. We are the air. From the first voices that cut through the static to the present-day host shaping culture and conversation, Black radio has always been more than entertainment. It's been education, empowerment, and expression. Tune in, speak up, and pass the mic. The future of Black radio is still being written, and it's louder than ever.